Although the Nigerian police force bore the terrible brunt of the Endsars protest last year, and there can be no compensation to make up for the lives of policemen who got killed during the incident, the Nigerian government on Wednesday made good its promise to improve the welfare of police officers in line with the demands of the protesters. The government made this demand by approving an upward review of the salaries of police personnel in the country by 20%, effective January 2022. Among other allowances, the duty tour allowance of police officers was also increased to 6% of their take-home pay. Now joining us to discuss the improvement in police emoluments and whether this is likely to have a positive impact on policing in the country is Oladotun Hassan, a lawyer who participated in the Endsars protest in October 2020. Dotun is the chairman, Etiosa Bar Forum, President Yoruba Council Worldwide, and President Yoruba Lawyers Association. Dotun, it's good to have you with us. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the morning show.
It's a pleasure.
Well, I'm interested
to be here with you.
In one of these groups that you lead. Yeah, Yoruba Lawyers Forum. Surprised that there's something called the Yoruba Lawyers Forum. But that's not why you are here. You are here to discuss the increase in police pay. What do you think? Do you think 20% goes far enough? Other measures that have been taken by government, are they in line with the request of the Endsars protesters that government should do something about police welfare? And do you think that this will have an overall effect in terms of police reform and improvement in performance?
Well, it's an unfortunate situation that, if you fail to plan, you definitely plan to fail. A situation whereby we are good at fire brigade approach in solving our problems in this country. I think that's one of the things that battered the Endsars and other demands that followed suit. And quite interestingly, the Endsars only consolidated on the police welfare demand. Police welfare demand has always been on a recurring decimal of successive administration, even from President Obasanjo's era to Jonathan to Yaradua to this present administration. So, and there are a lot of other reforms and other interventions, maybe vis-a-vis the police trust fund and other interest. And I think the pre-October 2020 scenario gave birth to what crystallized to the increase or the proposed increase of 20% in salary and some allowance intervention. To many, 20% is huge when you look at the salary scale in terms of how do you really place the salary scale. To anybody listening to 20%, you believe is a huge amount compared to the entire salary scale. So what's the salary scale of an average constable? Do you think by adding 20%, that constable will not look elsewhere to collect bribe, or that will ensure his commitment to service? No. The holistic approach to this is for government to develop a master plan that caters not just the welfare, training, retraining, and other aspects of the policing system as far as the nation is concerned. It seems our constitution and the way and manner whereby over-centralization of policing to federal government is really affecting the smooth administrative running. Even if police is given 50% increment in salary, I don't think without a solid policing structure whereby state and local government can as well have base of intervention, commitment, and administrative processes that guides it. So irrespective of the fact that President Muhammadu Buhari has considered the 20%, the effectiveness, which is to take up from 2022. We hope another emergency situation don't crept in to dissuade or distract government from implementing or other bottlenecks of ensuring the police men or women on the street they get that money. You can see protests of how emolument and pensions of immediate present police officers have not yet been paid. So these are issues. So it is not a to garnish the policy by thinking Nigerians or the Endsars demand have been met. These are just one of many of the demands of the Endsars. But I don't think we should give that credit to the federal government for yielding to Endsars demand, because that demand requires some level of assurance as at the period these demands were being made. If government were to have this policy, they should have come up without just changing the SARS to SWAT alone, because that is the only significant drive that was achieved during that whole crisis. And aftermath of that crisis, the healing process of that crisis itself is still recurrent in people's mind till date. So it's an amalgam of various issues that we are considering today. But definitely we have to still give kudos to someone who still look at your side. For the federal government to have considered 20%, yes, thumbs up. But the implementation, this is a country whereby we have drawn out very beautiful policies, but when it comes to implementation, that is where you know that aftermath of the service of the IG and every other thing, disclosures on how billions are being siphoned can as well be another issue of discourse another day. But I believe strongly that it's a good step in the right direction. But this policy should not just be a government policy. There should be a review of our policing system whereby states will also have their own separate policing structure. And this funding and adequate measures, because we believe the state governors are also enabled financially through the security vote. But majority of these governors convert the security vote for their personal and cronies expenses. So this, we should look at it, that will this 20% affect the entire uniform the policeman will be using, because policemen buy their uniform themselves. Do policemen, will the government be providing maybe bulletproof vest, body cam, and all the necessary gadgets that makes policing more interesting as a profession, not as a business or like as a trade? But we need to look at all this, that the 20%, if it goes to salary and the allowances alone, there should be a well straight line measures of actual increment of that salary before the additional of that 20%. The addition of 20% to their present something should also look at, let us get the salary of an average constable to, let's say, 250,000 naira. Then from that 50,000 naira, you can now look at addition of the 20%. Let us have a tag of what an average policeman really needs to sustain him and his family in a month.
Now, you led a meeting under the Nigerian Youth Organization and Yoruba Council of Youth during the Endsars saga. That's before the incident that occurred on October 20th. To the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami. Now, you presented a blueprint to the federal government's cardinal areas of intervention. Can you share with us some of those details of your presentation?
Yes, it's very interesting that we need to understand that during the Endsars protest, the federal government was a little bit adamant, non-shifting grounds, looking at the way the frustrated Nigerian youth towards that 28th October, because that 28th October need not to have occurred. But prior before those period, we led a meeting to the Attorney General of the Federation, Malam Abubakar, Malami SAN, and during the course of our discussion, I and alongside with the Oaze Indigbo Youth Council President and other regional and ethnic youth leaders under the aegis of the Nigerian Youth Organization, we were able to present possible solutions as at that period, looking at what are the areas that government needs to quickly make measures that will solve the problems, aside from the fact that what led to the protest is more of attitudinal and lackadaisical attitude of some gun-thirsty or blood-thirsty police officers who just believe life means nothing to them. And that is one of what led to that protest. Not that the police welfare was one of the issues that led to the protest. It was the Kolades killing and the killing in Delta State that skyrocketed and led to that sporadic protest. Police welfare was never as part of the demand. But during the course of reasoning, Nigerians felt that, well, one of the issues is police welfare, yeah. But we were able to put before the Attorney General that a review of the policing structure as a result of the way you go to an ordinary division police, maybe a divisional police headquarters within your area, the very first approach that you meet an average policeman, the public perception, how do a policeman address you when you even go to a police station, is so woeful, meaning there is no actual retraining of public communication to Nigerian police officers. We're able to let the Attorney General know that the budget of policing should be a concurrent demand between the states, because some states inject funds into the Nigerian police force. Are these funds just ordinary donation without any accurate budget for it? If it is a policy plan, let each governor know that out of their 50% monthly allocation for security vote, this is the actual amount that goes directly into policing of their immediate states. We're able to also make further demands on the part of the Nigerian youth that in as much as the youth unemployment, degradation of human rights, lack of good governance, corruption has crept in. And one of the cardinal thing that causes all this thing is lack of planning. We're able to put to the federal government that, you must first initiate a youth rights act that must be signed as a measure of emergency. What are we looking at this Youth Rights Act? A Youth Rights Act that provides and enshrine a policy on adequate welfare of Nigerians, which is one of the cardinal constitutional responsibility of every government to provide welfare and adequate security. But we know that in the whole of Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which makes the Section 6, Section 6C of that same Constitution unjusticiable, meaning you cannot even make rightful demands as far as those areas. So we were able to lift the Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution, which are the policies of government. We were able to lift it and add up some other policy intervention to make it a Youth Rights Act as a measure of demand. The second was to ensure that we have the National Youth Development Commission. We were able to understudy that the way and manner our governance structure through the Ministry of Youth are concerned does not in any way have that holistic approach in dealing with youth restiveness, youth demands, and other key areas. But with that National Youth Development Commission is to aggregate beyond the various cosmetic program of UN, youth intervention, presidential aid, and this. There must be a national policy plan. Through that Youth Development Commission, we raised a demand that 10% deduction from the federation account before its sharing to the federal and state and local government 10% must be deducted to a National Youth Trust Fund, whereby an average Nigerian youth that is captured under the National Youth Data Identification Program, because we know there is a national ID, but there must, for a youth sector of a country, I used to remember maybe when in my last 2 days that we have this student ID card, international student ID card, that gives you some rebates in traveling and all that. If the federal government is actually serious in dealing with its youth challenges, there must be a drive that capture the age bracket of this actual youth that the government wants to intervene. The demograph must be properly ascertained. What is the population in youth in South, South, Southeast, and Southwest, Northeast, North Central, and Northwest? This must be brought together under a national policy plan of the National Development Commission, which will go directly into the 777 for local government in collaboration with the Federal Ministry and State Ministry of Youth Development. And the policy, the agency, which is the National Development Commission, will be that engine room parastatal that deals with youth activities, irrespective of whichever government or party in power. The policy drive beyond the Ministry of Youth will go a long way.
Barrister Hassan, we'll go on a quick break. We'll come back and we'll delve more into police matters this morning. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the morning show. We still have Hassan Oladotun here, a lawyer that participated in the Endsars protest in October 2020. Hassan, I mean, you've said a lot about, the ideas you've got for youth development in this country, which is, quite very valid. But I want to go back to the heart of the matter here, which is about the police force. Yes, 20% increase in salary, also terms of duty looked at, insurance backlogs paid. Do you think that insurance will always be a tipping point? Because the argument you made this morning is that, okay, with 20% doesn't mean they shouldn't still collect bribe. I don't think the challenge is, the fact that payment will stop bribe. Everywhere in the world, people are still exposed to corruption despite how much they are paid. But the terms of service is something. The fact that if a police officer dies, the fact that he knows he's got a good insurance package for his family members, do you think that will tip the scale? And do you also think that there should be a need for attitudinal training apart from this and, some other things as enunciated in the 5 for 5 demands?
Well, the essence of, the foundation that led to in part of the 5 on 5 demands of police welfare is that issue of bribe collection, is that issue of corruption endemic in the Nigerian police force system, whereby policemen just believe that, well, because I'm not getting enough, let me look outside. We know an average, I'm sorry to say, an average mankind is also susceptible to selfishness and other corruptible traits. But that notwithstanding, the 20%, just as I've rightly said, is commendable. But we're having huge problem on implementation. Who gets what at what end? If they are clearing the backlogs, is it inclusive of those that are pensioners? What is their training formation like? How do you really rate the present Nigerian policing system? Aftermath of the Endsars, do you think police themselves have been behaving rightly to the public? These are issues that, because immediately aftermath of the Endsars, even till date, there is this attitudinal view that is more negative in dealing with issues from the police to the public. But we still believe that it is a means that the government at all levels, that is why training is very key. Then who are those that needs to be in charge of all this area that we are talking about? The state government, the local government, because each police are domiciled in the particular area. If they must be acclimatized with the sociological interest of their immediate environment. There are some particular areas in this country which are Muslim-based community. We have some mixed breed society. We have some social line areas as far as the country is concerned. So if a policeman that is coming from the northern part of this country who believes that he has this Sharia notion in his mindset, functioning appropriately within an environment, just like in Delta or any area, might have one or two psychological effect on him in dealing with some certain issues that they need to have an understanding of that area. So these are areas whereby that training and retraining must come into place. Though we have the community policing PCRC meeting, but how much has the PCRC itself contributed to policing strategy, except those members that goes there, just go there to collect toga that they'll put on their car just to evade police arrest and also do some coverage. Aside that, what are the effects of how we need to build this? These are key areas that we were able to present when we met the Attorney General. We also posited that for us to solve the endemic problem in our society, the community policing system strategy must also be initiated. That because we were able to propose what is called the National Joint Security, Regional Security Network to the federal government, whereby all our local security base, just like the Amotekun, the OPC, can have a national coverage, because these are people that communicate with their people within the local lines. But the police must be able to work closely with these structures of interest. We know we have the civilian JTF in the Northeast. There must also be a national policy drive that captures everyone. We know what the Amotekun went through in the eyes of the federal government before its formation. I was part of the people that drafted the Amotekun document policy plan that presented to Dawn Commission in 2018. It was a well-structured blueprint. But as of today, over 60% of that policy drive is yet to be met because of the funding, because of the communal interest that it carries on with it. But just this, in order not to dissuade away from, to shift away from your question, the actual thing that is needed by the federal government is to strategically push out a national policy plan on Nigerian policing system. There is nothing the federal government needs to be afraid about in decentralizing policing system in Nigeria. It is workable in developed countries. Why must our home be different, that policing must come from one central IGP and that goes down to that last man constable? That will not be connection line of developing our policing structure without the state actually coming into our federal policing structure. The governors are spectators in policing development in Nigeria. If we need to review our laws, and these are what restructuring demand have always, one of the cardinal points that the restructuring demand is always pointing out is independence and state policing. We know some state governors under the Nigerian Governors Forum are driving towards that, but how realistic will the federal government be able to shed off the weight and overburden interest around the Nigerian police force? We need to have, when you get to every state command need not be an annexure of the federal government. Those state commands, just as the way the governors operate as chief security officer, they should be in charge. They should be able to also recruit. They should also be able to bring in pay salaries and also complement effort at that level. Even if it is an allowance that the state will be providing, we can achieve more positives if the federal government is able, under the present administration, to look at how we can get this thing solved once and for all. We need to solve the problem once and for all. And these are areas that I want to advise the federal government that, in as much as this 20% should not just be a flash in the pan, let the welfare, the insurance, from recruitment. You go and look at the recruitment exercise in our Nigerian police college. It's more like you are trying to train somebody on how to be wicked, nonchalant, even without proper orientation. For you to go for your recruitment, the welfare from that foundation stage. What are the Nigerian policing doing in that regard? The Nigerian police force ought to also establish a base with Nigerian University Commission, because this training that we are talking about, there must be a training in law, accounting, in every profession. An average policing system must be able to train men and his women and forces to have detailed knowledge in all these key areas. So with the NUC, through the various universities, the polytechnics and all that, should be able to provide some short courses that Nigerian police within their own environment can go for, learn within 6 months, and also be certified for such courses. Is to add value. This should be government sponsored. This should be areas whereby government needs to build the structure of its policing strategy. So we should look at this whole issue not just on the police salary increase or the insurance backlog of insurance premiums and payment for those that have died or those that are still suffering. We know that the Endsars issue dealt more on the citizens' demands. But during that same period, the victims of the Nigerian police were not also given a complainant role within their various panels. So, and I think, and I want to advise, the panels that were closed down need not be closed down. This should be a national passage, a law must be passed, or a national policy must be created. Hello, sir?
Can you hear me? We have just about 2 minutes. Yes, we have just about 2 minutes to go. Or, just very few minutes.
Okay.
If you could summarize on this point quickly, because I have 2 questions that I would like to ask you. Please go ahead. Hello, go ahead. Go ahead. If you conclude your thoughts.
Okay. Yes. I was trying to relate that the federal government needs to reopen the Endsars panel that was passed from the federal government, because it's not the state government that constituted that body. Although Lagos state government had initially constituted that panel before the Endsars was also included as part of it. The major thing that we want to let the government know is that panel should be an ongoing national policy. It should be a continuum policy, because aside from that day that the panel packed up in Lagos, because Lagos is the epicenter, from that same day, police brutality is still ongoing as I speak to you. Where will the complaint of those ones go to? Who will be the one to go and intervene on their behalf? Do the policing system that has the escort unit, the provost unit, are they doing much to bring the public into the escort unit? Is the public also part of the panel that sits on all this escort investigation? Do the Ministry of Justice have a stake in the Nigerian police force disciplinary measures, the orderly room trial? Is it just an exclusive preserve of the police without the public or the witnesses of such an orderly room trial not involved during the investigation? So if the police does not have that, then the federal government must be able to create a public base for you to go and complain about police brutality under a well-structured court or a tribunal system. So I want to advise that should also be a takeaway from that, because the way the Endsars panel was shut down, because I will not say it was successfully ended, it was shut down abruptly, and that culminated to the white paper and the entire thing that at the end of the day was the federal government on its own now came up with thereby trying to taint the resolution of the panel, because you cannot be a judge in your own cause. If the federal government that is increasing the police salary will go to the same panel and condemn the panel that find him wanting in one area, meaning we are not ready for what we are professing to do.
Well, I told you we're trying to manage time, so I want to ask you two questions that maybe you can deal with in 2 minutes. You have to be very brief. Now, you made a case earlier on for state police when you were trying to defend the interests of, state governors. Could you expand on that a little bit? And then I asked you originally, this Yoruba lawyers forum. Hold on a minute.
Yes.
This Yoruba, just hold on. This Yoruba lawyers forum that you lead, what is it? Is it a cartel? Is it an ethnic nationalist group? Do you take cases only from Yoruba people? Go ahead.
Yes, for the first question, the areas of intervention needs to be on the federal government drive with under the National Council of States. These are areas that can be resolved. This is a state. Our country, we are good to addressing issue from the fire brigade approach. But if we can systematically sit down, the Nigerian Governors Forum needs to draw up a policy plan that fits in to how state policing can take off. Lagos has set a parental structure of how we can develop policing through the state government, through the Lagos State Security Trust Fund that provided the helicopters and gadgets that the federal government, by any means, have not paid at maybe 1/3 of whatever that has been invested in Lagos alone. If Lagos can do that, and the Lagos state government only generated that from a security trust fund, not the security vote of the state. And I cannot determine how they go about the budget, but I believe the security trust fund are monies that are being generated from private corporations that we have in Lagos and individual contributions, which run into billions of trillions of naira. But in as much as we have that, there must be a national policy plan. Policing must not just go on donating buses and donating gadgets, but if there can be a national policy plan of an emergency in addressing the current insecurity that we have in this country. In as much as we have that, we can go a long way to draw up a state-owned policing structure whereby policemen that are drafted to their various domain within their various states, the federal government needs to just shelve the salary payment structure. Now, once you get to your state, let that salary structure payment be done by the state government, so that the only thing the federal government needs to do is to monitor and evaluate how progressing the state policing structure are faring. And it does not in any way cut the duty of the IGP away from the AIG, from the DIG. There must still be a connecting link of hierarchical order. But at the state level, the policing structure must be properly situated to the people's demand. And if this thing is actually implemented, it will go a long way to create an enabling environment. While from the point of the other question of Yoruba Lawyers Association, it's not to drive an ethnic agenda, but it's to protect our people. It is Lawyers Forum that represent the interest of Yoruba groups, Yoruba ethnic views, and to also ensure that our people are properly protected from the legal point, from orientation, from media, from every spectrum of our governance within the Yoruba land. When I say Yoruba land, it's not limited to Southwest alone. We know how large from how we know our history. And so in dealing with that situation, the Yoruba Lawyers Association is put together to bring lawyers
Okay.
of Yoruba interest to also serve that area of intervention.
Thank you so much, Hassan.